Today I'm going to make you a master at completing the square. But first I'm going to show you why it's important to know how to complete the square. So imagine that you get a parabola like this and they ask you, what's the turning point? It's not really clear straight away what the turning point would be. But if we had the completed the square version, which is this, you can read the turning point very easily. It's the opposite number here, so -3, and then it's the actual number here. So the turning point would be -3, -4. Now in this video I'm going to show you how to go from this form to this form so you can read the turning point very easily, and then we can end up drawing any parabola that comes your way. Now I'm going to show you step by step how to complete the square on this parabola. So what you first do is you look at the number in front of the x, always in front of the x, 6. And what you do is you halve 6. And what do we get? We get 3. Then what you do is you square the number that we just got. So we square 3, and that gets us 9. Now what you do is write down our parabola up to here, then you plus and minus this number. Always plus first and then minus after. And then move that 5 down from here. So now what you do is we need to factorize this by itself. And it's really easy to factorize this without even thinking much. All you need to do is just put the number from here into the bracket. That's it. And then -9 plus 5 is going to be equal to -4. And you can see how we got the same thing that we had before. And from here, you can read that it's -3, -4 as your turning point. What if we came across a parabola like this? Now what you'll notice here is that there's actually a number in front of the x squared. In the previous example, the number was 1 and we didn't have to do anything. But when there's a number in front of the x squared, you need to factor it out of the entire quadratic first, and then we can complete the square. So what we would do here is take the 2 out, and that will leave us with x squared plus 4x plus 2. So now you can see that that 2 is out, and I can now complete the square on this bit individually, and then multiply this 2, so expand it back at the end. So I'll show you how to do that now. So like I showed you before, we need to halve that number there, and we get 2. Then we need to square it, and we get 4. So now, remember, always write that 2 on the outside, don't forget it. We need to write +4 minus 4. And then move that 2 down as well. Okay. Now we can factorize this bit by itself, and remember, all you need to do is just put that number in there. So +2. If that was -2, you would write -2. Whatever that number is, you put it there. -4 plus 2 is going to be -2. And then don't forget these brackets out here, okay, with that 2. Now our final step would be just to expand this to our 2 terms here. So 2, and then we get x plus 2 squared. And then when you times 2 and -2, that gives us -4. And from here, again, you can read your turning point very easily. It's the opposite number there, and then it's the number there. And we're done. I'll do one last example with you guys. So here you can see that there's -3 in front of the x squared. So we need to factor that out first before we complete the square. So let's do that really carefully. That gets us x squared -2x plus 7/3. Now that we've done that, we can start out completing the square. So remember, you get this number in front of the x and you halve it. And then you square it. And then we can write our next line. So don't forget the -3 in the brackets. You always need to write that down. And remember, you just plus and minus that number. Okay. And then our next step will involve factorizing this bit. Okay. And if you remember, to factorize that, all you do is put that number inside this bracket. It factorizes nice and easily. And then finally, we need to combine these together. Be very careful when you're combining fractions to not make a mistake. So to combine this, we need the same bottom number here as well. Right now that bottom number is 1, so we need to times it by 3 over 3. That gets us negative 3 over 3 plus 7 over 3, which is 4 over 3. And then finally, we can just expand this, and then we're done. Okay, so expanding that is going to get us negative 3 at the front when you times it by the bracket, and then this 3 is going to cancel with that one, and then the negative is going to win over that positive. So we're going to get negative 4 at the end there. Okay, and our final turning point is going to be the opposite of that number, 1, and then exactly whatever that number is at the end. So negative 4. And we're done. So here I'm going to show you how to completely draw this parabola using the completing the square as a way to help us. Okay, so remember what I said. Look if there's a number in front of the x squared. There isn't, so we don't need to factor anything out first. Then what you do is you look at the number in front of the x, you halve it, and then you square it. So then our next line would be this. You plus the 4 first, minus the 4 second, and then bring that 3 down. Factorize this very easily by just putting this number in there. And then negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. Okay, so we can read the turning point very easily. The turning point is the opposite of this number, so 2, and then exactly what that number there is. So 2, negative 1 is our turning point. So if you look here, we go 1, 2 is our x value, and then down by 1. So that's our turning point right there. 2, negative 1. Now that we've done this, we can use this to figure out our x-intercepts. Now remember, for x-intercepts, y is always equal to 0. So y is always equal to 0. So if we make y 0 there, and then I write the rest of this out, we get this equation here. Now we can just rearrange this and solve for x. So we need to get this x by itself. So we move the 1 to the other side by plussing it. And then to get rid of this square here, we need to square root both sides. When you square root both sides, you always get plus or minus square root of that number. And then you get x minus 2 because that disappears now. Now the square root of 1 is just 1, so I don't need to write that square root there. And then finally, we can just plus the 2 across. So plus the 2 across, and we get what x equals. So x is equal to 2 plus or minus 1. So x is equal to 2 plus 1, which is 3, or x is equal to 2 minus 1, which is 1. So those are our two x-intercepts, 3, 0, 1, 0. And we can plot them here. So we're going to get 3, 0, and then 1, 0. And then finally, we just need to get the y-intercept. Now with the y-intercept, that's when x is equal to 0. Okay, and it's much easier just to put x is equal to 0 in the original equation, because if we make this 0, it disappears. If we make this 0, it disappears, and you're just left with 3. Okay, so that's the easiest way to figure that out. So we can go here and put it at 0, 3 as our y-intercept. And then finally, we get to draw our parabola in. So that's just going to look like this. Like that. And then we are finished.